Let's read a scary story. On a dreary, wet evening, Graham was working in the study when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, squinting at a message from a courier company. "Sorry we missed you. We left your parcel in your designated safe place." Graham scrolled down to a photo of a package in his garden shed. That's strange, he thought to himself. He had been in all evening and hadn't heard anyone at the door. Maybe it was for the best. He had a habit of ordering things online, and this way he wouldn't have to justify his latest purchase to his partner. He could pop down the garden, grab it, and she would never have to know. He loitered in the hallway and could hear his wife watching a murder mystery on TV. Perfect. She loves those shows and wasn't going anywhere. He grabbed a flashlight and headed out into the darkness. The flagstone paving that wound down the side of the mature shrubbery was slippery from the recent rainfall. As he neared the shed, his eyes fixed on the open door, which was gently creaking back and forth. He was a little bit miffed that the courier had been too lazy to latch it shut, and upon reaching the shed, he let out a cry of frustration as the parcel sat in a pool of water, ripped, soggy, and rather pathetic. He grumbled under his breath as he stooped to pick it up, and was far too distracted to hear the swift sound of cold steel whistle through the night towards him. It was late at night when Caroline heard someone at the door. Startled, she glanced at the clock and opened up the doorbell camera on her phone. The lens was fogged up, but she could just about make out a figure stood on her porch, holding a package. This was not unusual. In the past, she had received deliveries as late as 10 p.m. She pressed the intercom button to speak. "Hi," she said. "Just leave it in the porch, I'll grab it later." The dark figure held the package up to the camera. "Sorry, Mom," he said, "but I'm gonna need a signature." Caroline hesitated. "I don't remember ordering anything," she said. The man nodded understandingly, his image blurry on the camera. "Caroline Fletcher, 22 Prescott Avenue. Is that you? Maybe it's a gift from a friend or a relative. These things happen all the time," he said. Caroline wasn't sure. "It's a bit late for this," she said. He chuckled softly, the sound crackling through the intercom. "I completely understand your caution. Look, here's my ID badge," he said, holding it up to the camera. "See? Official delivery service. And here's the return address. It's from a well-known store. Maybe you forgot you ordered something." She squinted at the screen, feeling oddly pressured. "I don't know," she said. "Tell you what," he said smoothly. "I can leave the signature pad out here for you to sign. I'll go back to my van for 5 minutes, and when I return, I'll pop your parcel on the porch like you wanted. That way, there's no risk for you." Caroline bit her lip. She didn't want to leave the safety of her house. "Can you pass it through the door instead?" she asked. "Sure," said the man. "Whatever's easiest for you." "All right, give me a second," she said, turning off the feed to the camera and popping her phone in her pocket. She approached the door and carefully secured the security chain. She figured it would leave just enough room for the signature pad to be passed through. The moment she opened the door a crack, the man rushed forwards, slamming into the door with enormous force. The weak chain snapped, and Caroline barely had time to gasp as she was knocked backwards into the hallway. Her face twisted with fear as a dark figure pounced on her, and with that, she was gone. Danny trudged home after a bad day at work. His colleagues had been making fun of his new loafers. They'd been calling him Grandma and sneaking scented tissues into his pockets. As he stepped inside and shook off the rain, he noticed a slip of paper pushed through his letterbox. It was a postal slip with "Sorry we missed you" scrawled on it. It said that there was a package waiting for him and an address for collection. The pickup time was between 6 and 10 p.m. His spirits lifted. He loved getting parcels. He glanced at the clock. It was just after 9 p.m. There was still time. He grabbed his keys and headed out. The address led him to an industrial estate on the outskirts of town. He drove slowly, the headlights slicing through the night. Inside was a waiting area, furnished with a couple of worn chairs and a bell on the counter of a small office with privacy glass and a slide-in hatch. He rang the bell and waited. Just as he began to wonder if anyone was there, a tall figure appeared on the other side of the glass, and the hatch slid partially open. Danny pushed the delivery slip across the counter. "I'm here to pick up a parcel," he said. There was a long pause before the figure spoke. "Your package is in the back," he said, and closed the hatch. Danny was surprised when a door opened in a hallway next to him. "Follow me," said the man. "Your parcel is this way." They walked down a series of narrow, winding corridors, the man always a few steps ahead. The further they went, the more uneasy Danny felt. There was no conversation or sounds of any other workers, only a deep silence, broken only by the noise of their shoes tapping the concrete. Danny cleared his throat. "Is it much further? I didn't think it would take this long." The man spoke without turning. "It's right around the corner." They finally stopped, and the man pointed to a small room in front of them. "There it is." The blood rushed from Danny's face. In front of him was a bare brick room with rusty chains hanging from the ceiling. He turned to the man with a question hanging from the tip of his tongue, but was swiftly grabbed and thrown inside. The man's demeanour transformed in an instant. His eyes widened and his posture grew menacing. He strode in after Danny, and the door started to close behind him. This was not good, and Danny knew it. The man's eyes were glossy, devoid of expression or emotion. "I like getting packages too," he said with a chilling calm, pulling out a large box cutter. "And my favourite part is opening them up to see what's inside." Danny looked hopelessly at the door, expecting it to be shut tight, but by chance, one of his loafers had fallen off in the chaos and wedged itself in the opening. A jolt of desperate energy surged through him. He ducked away from his attacker, barreled towards the door, and rammed it open with his shoulder. Heart pounding, he sprinted back the way they had come, the sound of his pursuer's footsteps echoing behind him until he finally reached his car. His trembling fingers started the engine, and he sped away, the warehouse shrinking in his rear-view mirror. He floored it down the motorway for 20 minutes straight, then pulled into a service station and called the police. That evening, a couple of officers met with him. They took his statement and assured him they would investigate. They advised him not to trust every slip of paper that came through his letterbox. They said that they would be in touch if they turned anything up. Danny was not reassured in the slightest. He tried to get on with his life as best he could, and with time, the memory of that night faded. One day, after having a great day out, he returned home feeling unusually light-hearted. For a moment, he felt like his old self again. He stepped inside, humming to himself, when the doorbell rang. He opened up the door to find a small, neatly wrapped package on the step. He turned it over in his hands and then carefully unwrapped it. Inside was one of his loafers, and scrawled on the packaging were the words, "Missed you again. See you soon." I hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know if you spotted all of the blood-stained envelopes hidden in the pictures. Night-night.